Hey, what's cracking? Coach Ryan Fanley, and I'm back in the Viper Pit with day 2 of Dead-U-Ary Second, where we're talking about the deadlift, one of my favorite lifts. Yesterday we talked about conventional deadlifts. Today we're going to talk about sumo deadlifts. Sumo deadlifts are basically a wide stance deadlift that uses your hips, your adductors a little bit more. It's going to lead to a more upright back position, and it tends to be better for shorter leg lifters or shorter arm lifters because they can get their arms to the bar with a better back position. So let's dig right in. I'm going to show you some tips on how to get set up for sumo, and we will go from there. When we talk about sumo deadlifts, there's a couple things we have to talk about. First of all, in many of the federations that compete in gear or using powerlifting equipment, they're going to use a longer deadlift bar. It's actually going to be the distance of the actual bar that you can grip is going to be a bit wider, so the plates are going to be out further, which means you can get your legs out further. So generally for sumo deadlift, you want to try to get as wide as possible. Most powerlifters that utilize it will go with their toes all the way out to the plate. Okay, you can vary that a little bit. Some people will go with what's called a quote-unquote modified sumo stance, so it's more of a mid stance, midway between conventional and sumo. But for the sake of discussion today, we're going to assume a wide base. So for first rule is toe position. If you point your toes forward, you will have the ability to create an external rotation torque in the hips. The problem is it can be uncomfortable for the hips. So everyone has different hip anatomy. The ball and the socket of everyone's hip joint is often different. So some people have a very deep socket, other people have an oversized head of the femur, or oversized ball, if you will. It sounds a little funny. We're not talking about elephantitis here, we're talking about the hips. Get your mind out of the gutter. So, everyone's hip anatomy is different. Me personally, I cannot go wide like this with the toes forward because it just crushes my hips. I get some impingement on the side. So I actually externally rotate my toes. I don't know if you can see, but my toes are turned out about 45 degrees here, and it allows a little more room in the hips for me. Now, the biggest key with sumo deadlift is you want to try to get your hips as close to the bar as possible. So we're not pushing back in this instance as much. We're staying upright and more dropping down. One of the cues that I like to use, and sorry for the ladies out there, if you find this offensive, I don't really care. We get offended too much about things in society today. That's a rant for a different day. But one of the cues I like to use is to think about dunking your nuts down to the bar. Again, this cue only applies to males, but hopefully you'll get the drift. So we're actually trying to set the hips right down the bar. Now you also want to keep a vertical tibia. We don't want a lot of forward knee translation. Powerlifters are going to grill me on this one because I am notoriously bad at sumo. It usually takes me about an hour to get warmed up for it, so this may not be the best demonstration. But you're simply going to push the knees out to the side hard, keep your back locked in, get your grip, get your nuts close to the bar, and then pull up using the hips. For a lot of people, this is going to be a shorter range of motion, so it's going to be more effective for them being able to lift more weight. So this is the sumo deadlift. I hope you learned something today. If you like these videos, click subscribe below, and I will see you tomorrow for another edition of Dead-U-Ary.